Fixed Crossing is the kind of place people go to feel small, quiet, and safe. A rural stretch in the South Burnett region of Queensland, about 3 hours northwest of Brisbane. It's known for calm water gliding through Bamba Creek, for fishing lines flicking into still reflections, for kayaks drifting through eucalyptus shade. A place where the loudest sound is usually wind through the grass. But in October 2024, that peace broke because a 27-year-old man named Jack McLennan walked into Fixed Crossing and never came home. At first, the story sounded simple. News outlets reported Jack was on a boys' weekend. They said he worked in the fitness industry. They said he was just having a couple of drinks with friends, but his parents corrected that narrative. Jack had recently moved into construction work. He didn't come here to party. He had been traveling between places that weekend, planning to move in with his mother soon. And on that day, according to her, Jack and a friend were simply goofing around by the water, laughing, swinging from a rope swing into the creek. Just being boys, she said. Then the sun went down. Jack was last seen walking away from the Fixed Crossing campground on the evening of October 4th, 2024. No argument, no panic, just a quiet, ordinary walk under a darkening sky. And from that moment on, Jack disappeared without a trace. Before Jack vanished into the darkness at Fixed Crossing, he had a plan, a future, a direction. He had packed his car in Morgan with his personal belongings, clothes, tools, things you don't pack unless you're moving somewhere new. He told his mother, Kelly Moody, that he was planning to move in with her in Karui that same weekend. He worked there. His girlfriend lived in that area too. Life wasn't perfect, but it was moving forward. There was structure. There was purpose. There was family waiting for him at home. This wasn't a man disappearing to run away. This was a man on his way back to the people who loved him. That night at 8:50 p.m., Jack had what would become his last known phone call, a simple conversation with his sister Sydney. Nothing dramatic, no frantic words, no sign of fear. A normal call, the kind you don't remember because there's nothing to remember. And then silence. Not a text, not a call, not a single digital footprint. For Jack, that silence was not normal. He wasn't the kind of son who disappeared for days. He was the kind who answered the phone, the kind who checked in, the kind who showed up. His family felt something was wrong immediately. Jack had grown up on the Sunshine Coast, a former student of Mountain Creek State High. Recently, he had been living in Goomeri, just 24 kilometers from Fixed Crossing. Close enough to know the landscape, but still remote enough that if something went wrong, the bush could swallow the truth whole. And that's exactly what it seems to have done. One moment, a young man with a packed car and plans for tomorrow. The next, nothing. Not a trace. Not a goodbye. Not a single clue that made sense. Just a mother staring at a phone that wouldn't ring back. Fixed Crossing is the kind of place that looks harmless at first glance. The creek moves slow, like it has all the time in the world. The trees lean inward and form soft tunnels of shade. At sunrise, the light filters through the branches like something holy. If you came here on a good day, you'd think the world couldn't possibly hold anything cruel. But places like this often have two faces. The public face is the beauty. Fishing spots, kayaking channels, rope swings over the water, the quiet rhythm of nature. The other face, the one not printed in travel brochures, is a little darker. Locals say the area has long been associated with small pockets of drug activity, the kind that doesn't always show itself unless you're standing in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Not a full-blown criminal empire, but people, groups, personalities you learn not to make eye contact with. Jack didn't come to Fixed Crossing for that world. He wasn't a user. He wasn't a dealer. His family was firm on that. His father said, "This is a guy who didn't even smoke pot. He only had a few beers now and then." Jack wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble doesn't always need to be invited. That weekend, Jack wasn't emotionally steady. His mother said he was heartbroken, not destroyed, just bruised in that quiet, private way. He drank earlier in the day, which wasn't like him. He laughed. He swung into the creek. He tried, it seems, to feel okay. And sometimes that's when people wander into the wrong company. Night in Fixed Crossing is different from the day. When the sun slips behind the ridge, darkness doesn't fall, it swallows. The forest is thick, The bushland stretches out in every direction like a maze built from roots and shadows. There are no streetlights, no soft city glow on the horizon, just endless black, broken only by the glimmer of the creek when the moon finds it. If you walk out there at night, even on purpose, you could get turned around in 5 minutes. If you walk out there after drinking, your odds drop even further. And if someone follows you, then the landscape becomes something else entirely, a place that keeps secrets. Jack was last seen walking away from the campsite into that dark. No one knows why. No one knows where he thought he was going. What we do know is this: if Jack simply got lost, the searches should have found him. They covered kilometers of bush, air, and ground. They used trackers, dogs, divers. They combed through scrub and creek banks. The terrain is harsh, yes, but not infinite. Yet no body was found. What the land gave was something stranger. Pieces of Jack, a shoe, a hat, his wallet, appearing days and weeks later, scattered across different places, like someone or something was placing them. Not dropped, not lost, left, and that changed everything. In every missing person case, investigators look for the last moment of normal, the final sign that someone was still connected to the world. For Jack McLennan, that moment was a phone call at 8:50 p.m. on October 4th. He spoke to his sister, Sydney. There was no panic in his voice, no confusion, no hint of danger. It was the kind of call you forget until it becomes the last one. Sydney didn't know she was saying goodbye. No one ever does. What happened after that call has been pieced together from fragments, sightings, statements, timing estimates, and the memory of a landscape that does not tell stories easily. But there is one detail that presses on the mind like a thumbprint. Earlier that same day, hours before Jack vanished, he went to the Morgan police station. Not by coincidence, not by accident. It was a prearranged visit. The purpose of that meeting remains confidential. Authorities confirmed there were no concerns about Jack's safety or mental state at the time. They said he was calm, collected, that everything seemed fine. But someone doesn't schedule a private meeting at a police station for no reason. That visit is a locked door in this story, and whatever is behind it, we are not allowed to see. After leaving the station, Jack continued his day. He drank, he laughed, he went to the creek, he told people he was tired and intended to sleep. Yet, sometime between that statement and the dark settling deep into the trees, Jack made a decision that doesn't make sense. He walked off alone. No one knows why. There was no argument, no chase, just a quiet step into the night. What we do know is this: when Jack didn't come home the next day, his family acted fast. They knew him. They knew this wasn't just a young man taking space. They called, they texted, they waited. And when the waiting became unbearable, they reported him missing. From that moment on, the search began. Official teams, volunteers, helicopters, drones, dogs, horses. People combed the bushland for days, then weeks, but the land gave nothing except silence. Then, slowly, items began to appear. A shoe found near the fishing hole, his hat discovered near the highway, his wallet and debit card located on private property between Fix Crossing and Morgan. But not all at once, not in a way the elements would have scattered them, in patterns. Locations that suggest placement, not accident. As Jack's father said, it doesn't make sense, none of it does. The final phone call, the police station meeting, the quiet walk into the dark, the sudden disappearance, the scattered belongings. Each piece is clear on its own, but together they refuse to form a picture, and that is where the mystery deepens. When someone goes missing in the Australian bush, time becomes the most unforgiving enemy. The land is wild, unpredictable, and often merciless, but it also leaves traces, footprints, broken branches, clothing snagged on wiregrass. The bush may hide, but it rarely erases, which is why the search for Jack McLennan quickly became something far more unsettling than a simple missing persons case. Within hours of Jack being reported missing, emergency services began sweeping the Fix Crossing region, on foot, in vehicles, on horseback. Drones traced the winding paths of Bamba Creek from above. Helicopters scanned the dense canopy with thermal imaging. Specialized dogs were brought in to follow scent trails. Divers combed the water where Jack and his friend had been earlier that day. Hundreds of man-hours, thousands of dollars. Terrain covered over and over again. And still, nothing. Jack was fit, strong, familiar with rural landscapes. He was only 24 kilometers from where he'd been living recently in Goomeri. This wasn't unfamiliar ground. If he had simply wandered off and gotten lost, search teams should have found him within days. Bodies do not evaporate in the Australian bush, but Jack seemed to have done exactly that. His family did not wait on the sidelines. His father, Ross, flew in from Tasmania to join the search personally. His mother, Kelly, spent day after day pushing through terrain that experienced bushworkers call unforgiving. Snakes, wild pigs, thick brush that cut skin like paper, 300-acre private properties that take full days to sweep properly. Hope began to hurt, but they kept going. As days turned into weeks, small pieces of Jack began to surface. On October 10th, his shoes were found near the fishing area where he had spent time with his friend. On October 11th, his black cap appeared near McAllister and McLucas streets in Morgan, just 200 meters from the major Bunya highway, close enough that he could have reached help if he were alive. Yet he didn't. And then more than a month later, on November 17th, searchers found Jack's wallet and debit card on private property between Fix Crossing and Morgan. It was a location that had already been searched. This changed the tone of everything. Because items don't move themselves weeks after someone disappears. Not shoes, not hats, not wallets. Someone or something relocated them. Either Jack was alive and wandering in a deeply disoriented state for weeks without being seen by a single farmer, driver, or passerby, or someone else had Jack's belongings after he disappeared. Neither option brings comfort. The official police search was suspended after 3 weeks, but investigators didn't walk away. Detectives from the Darling Downs Criminal Investigation Branch and the Homicide Investigation Unit launched Operation Whiskey Pocket, a continuing effort to pull truth from a story full of contradictions. Yet despite all the work, all the hours, and all the miles walked through dirt and heat and silence, no body was found, no confirmed sightings, no voice messages, no answers, just a family searching for a son, and a quiet stretch of Australian bushland that holds its silence like a secret. For the McLennan family, the days after Jack's disappearance didn't move forward in a straight line. They folded in on themselves. Time didn't feel like days passing. It felt like the same day happening over and over again, just with more fear added each time. Jack's mother, Kelly Moody, didn't stop searching. Not when her legs were shaking. Not when the heat pressed down. Not when police searches quieted. She walked creek beds and fence lines. She pushed through lantana and vines. She stepped into places most people would never think to go alone. Because when your child is missing, fear becomes irrelevant. Only finding them matters. His father, Ross, moved through the bush in silence, scanning the ground for patterns. Something disturbed, something broken, something out of place. He'd speak softly sometimes, as if Jack might answer back if he kept his voice gentle enough. They brought in everyone they could. Indigenous trackers skilled in reading the land the way others read language. Former Defense Force personnel familiar with survival, terrain, and movement. Even psychics, not because they believed in visions, but because one more possibility is better than none. People often imagine grief as something loud, shouting, sobbing, collapsing. But the real kind, the kind that presses itself into bone, is quiet. It sits behind the eyes. It shows up in the long exhale after someone asks, "Any news?" The community didn't forget Jack. But after the first weeks when headlines faded and the next news story took the spotlight, the burden of remembering fell mostly on the family. Jack's mother kept posting online, "Let's get loud again. Let's make Jack matter." Not because she feared people didn't care, but because silence is the one thing she could not accept. And in that silence, theories grew. Some believed Jack got lost in the bush and died of exposure. It's possible. The Australian wilderness is not forgiving. But this theory doesn't explain why his belongings appeared weeks later in strategic places, near roads and properties, not in deep bush. Others believe Jack may have witnessed something or crossed paths with the wrong group at the wrong moment, especially considering the area's reputation for small-scale criminal activity, the kind where loyalty is currency and silence is survival. A third theory revolves around the police station visit, a prearranged private matter. Nothing suspicious, officially, but secrecy always creates a shadow, even if the truth behind it is harmless. The most hopeful theory, the one that keeps mothers searching, is that Jack walked away, disoriented, confused, maybe injured, and that he is still somewhere. But hope like that can be both a lifeline and a blade. Because every sunrise is another day Jack could come home, and every sunset is another day he didn't. The truth is simple and devastating. Jack did not disappear alone. Something happened, but without a body, without a witness, without a confession, the story remains open. Not ended, not resolved, just suspended. A family in limbo, a landscape holding its breath, and a question that refuses to fade. Where is Jack McLennan? Every unsolved disappearance reaches a point where the facts slow down, but the questions don't. That's where Jack's story sits now, suspended between possibility and silence, waiting for something that has not arrived. 6 months passed, then a year, then more. But the one thing that never changed was the way Fixed Crossing feels now. People say the place is still beautiful. The creek still moves soft, the trees still lean in close, the rope swing still arcs over the water. But if you know the story, if you stand there at dusk, you don't see peace anymore. You feel absence, like the land is keeping something, like it knows more than it will ever say. On February 4th, 6 months after Jack vanished, his family and friends held a vigil at Fixed Crossing itself. Candles flickered in the falling light, names were spoken softly, stories were shared, the kind that make you smile first, then realize you're crying. Because Jack wasn't a headline. He wasn't a mystery. He wasn't a missing person poster. He was a son, a brother, a boyfriend, a friend, a person who mattered. In one of her posts, Jack's mother wrote, "A true blue guy. He helped others get fit and feel confident. He loved his family. He didn't hurt anyone. He deserved to come home." It's not poetry, it's just truth. This case hits differently because there is no clean ending. There is no confirmation of tragedy, which means the mind keeps trying to solve it. It circles the same questions again and again. If Jack got lost, where is he? If he was harmed, who did it? If someone knows something, why are they silent? Silence is the cruelest part of this story. Not the uncertainty, not the fear, not even the grief, but the silence. Because silence means Jack's family wakes up every single day in a world that has no answer for them. They cannot mourn, they cannot heal, they cannot accept, they can only wait. And waiting is a kind of grief that has no finish line. Queensland police have continued the investigation through Operation Whiskey Pocket. They review leads, they re-examine evidence, they talk to people who were in the area, they still ask for tips from the public. But the truth is simple and sharp. Someone knows what happened. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's a group, maybe it's someone who was just passing through, who saw something they chose not to mention. Maybe it's the kind of secret people convince themselves is easier to bury than to speak. But secrets do not disappear, they just wait. And so does the family, until a phone call comes, until a witness steps forward, until the land gives back what it took. This is not just a mystery, it's a plea. If you know anything, bring Jack home, because no one deserves to vanish without a trace. And no mother deserves to spend her life searching for the sound of a footstep that never arrives.